Formula 1 can be very unpredictable at times, and here are 8 of the most surprising wins in F1 history.
2016 Spanish Grand Prix. Before the Spanish Grand Prix in 2016, Red Bull made the controversial decision to replace Daniel Kvyat with Toro Rosso's Max Verstappen, with Kvyat going the other way. The Dutchman was only 18 and in his second season of Formula 1 when he was promoted to the Red Bull senior team. Lewis Hamilton took pole with Mercedes teammate and championship leader Nico Rosberg qualifying second for the Spanish Grand Prix. Ricciardo was third, with new teammate Verstappen in fourth. Then came the two Ferraris in fifth and sixth.
2016, and it's lights out and away we go. It was a super start from Nico Rosberg. Hamilton's got going as well, moves over to try and cut off his teammate, who now slits behind him a toe. Daniel Ricciardo in third already. It's Sebastian Vettel pressurising Max Verstappen down the inside. Round the outside goes Nico Rosberg into turn one, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Then sets in Daniel Ricciardo, and then Sebastian Vettel ahead of Max Verstappen. Good start from Carlos Sainz. He's ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Round turn three we go, and it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate. The two Mercedes come together.
At the start, Rosberg passed Hamilton, and then coming out of turn 3, Hamilton drew back alongside Rosberg, who forced him onto the grass. This caused Hamilton to lose control of his Mercedes and hit Rosberg, taking them both out of the race. This brought out the safety car, and the order was Ricciardo leading, Verstappen second, and Sainz, who made himself all the way up to third, before Vettel and Raikkonen in fourth and fifth behind the safety car. After the safety car restart, both Ferraris passed Sainz, and on lap 13, Ricciardo was the first of the top 4 to pit. Verstappen pitted on the next lap, and Vettel 2 laps later. On lap 28, Ricciardo was the first of the leaders to make a second pit stop, with Vettel following 2 laps later, meaning Verstappen now led with Raikkonen in second. They were both on a 2-stop strategy, with Vettel and Ricciardo opting for a 3-stop strategy, which was seen before the race as the optimal strategy. Verstappen and Raikkonen made their second pit stops on lap 34 and 35 respectively. Vettel made his final pit stop on lap 39 and Ricciardo on lap 43. The order was now Verstappen first, Raikkonen second, Vettel third, and Ricciardo fourth on the fastest tyres. Verstappen was under immense pressure from Raikkonen, who was in DRS range, but Verstappen stayed strong, stayed calm, and won in his first ever race for Red Bull, becoming the youngest winner in Formula 1 history. 2008 Italian Grand Prix. The weekend started with 3 rain-soaked practice sessions. Timo Glock was fastest in the third practice session, with Sebastian Vettel second, and Nico Rosberg third fastest. In qualifying, conditions were very wet throughout the sessions, and Toro Rosso's Sebastian Vettel took pole to become the youngest ever pole sitter, with Heikki Kovalainen in second, and Red Bull's Mark Webber in third. Championship leader Lewis Hamilton qualified 15th, with his championship rival Felipe Massa starting 6th. There was heavy rain before the race start, so the race was started under the safety car. The safety car pulled into the pits to start the race at the end of lap 2, and Vettel led the pack, with Kovalainen keeping second and Webber still in third. Vettel immediately pulled a gap of over 2 seconds over Kovalainen, and this lead grew to 6.3 seconds by lap 8. At the end of lap 18, Sebastian Vettel pitted from the lead. On lap 22, Kovalainen and Webber pitted. Alonso, Heidfeld and Kubica were all trying a one-stop strategy, and they pitted around lap 30. Webber was passed by Felipe Massa on lap 35 and spun soon afterwards. He was passed on the next lap by Lewis Hamilton. Vettel led the rest of the race and comfortably won by over 12.5 seconds, with Kovalainen finishing second, and Kubica's one stop paid off and he completed the podium. This was Vettel's and Toro Rosso's first ever race win, and Vettel became the youngest ever race winner. This was only his 6th points finish of the season out of 14 races, in his first full Formula 1 season. After the race, Toro Rosso boss Gerhard Berger declared that Vettel would go on to win multiple championships. How right he was too. 1977 Argentine Grand Prix. The 1977 Argentine Grand Prix was the opening round of the season. Wolf was a new team for the 1977 season, being formed after Frank Williams was removed from the Wolf-Williams team and took a number of his crew with him. In the team's first race, they would only run one car, with Jody Scheckter behind the wheel. Reigning world champion James Hunt took pole position from John Watson in second and Patrick Depailler in third. In Wolff's first qualifying session, Jody Scheckter qualified 11th out of 21. The race start was pushed back to 4 PM due to high temperatures, but it was still 43 degrees Celsius at the race start. John Watson jumped James Hunt after the start and built a sizable gap by the end of lap 1. In the early stages of the race, the gap at the front was stable at 2.5 seconds between John Watson and James Hunt. The intense heat was getting to Watson, and Hunt gradually caught him. Hunt then passed him and built a sizable lead of his own. Soon after, Niki Lauda retired from 4th, and the top 3 was now Hunt first, Watson second, and Andretti third. Watson and Andretti caught Alex Ribeiro to lap him. Watson slipped past, but when Andretti tried to follow him, Ribeiro turned in, damaging Andretti's front wing and causing him to lose pace. He was passed by Jochen Mass, who was pushing hard to catch the leaders, but a few laps later he spun and was out of the race. Pache then inherited third, with his Brabham teammate John Watson in second and McLaren's James Hunt leading comfortably until lap 32. A rear suspension failure ended Hunt's race and Brabham were now leading 1-2. Watson's Brabham developed a serious handling issue and he was passed by Pache on lap 35. Meanwhile, Wolff's Jody Scheckter had caught and passed the damaged Lotus of Andretti to move into an unlikely podium position 38 laps into the race. He was the quickest driver on track at that point and caught the Brabhams. Watson retired with a gearbox issue on lap 42 and Pache was suffering from severe heat exhaustion with 6 laps to go. Scheckter then passed Pache and led the remainder of the race to win in Wolff's first ever Formula 1 race and lead the championship. 2012 Spanish Grand Prix. Coming into the 5th round of the 2012 season in Spain, Sebastian Vettel led the championship, but 4 drivers had won the first 4 races. In qualifying, Hamilton was fastest for the 3rd time so far that season. Maldonado was a surprise 2nd for Williams, and Fernando Alonso finished 3rd in qualifying for his home race. After qualifying, Lewis Hamilton stopped on track due to a lack of fuel. He was disqualified from qualifying, giving Pastor Maldonado his first pole position in F1, with Fernando Alonso lining up alongside him, and Lotus's Grosjean and Raikkonen starting 3rd and 4th respectively. Maldonado got a poor start, and Alonso drew alongside. He was forced onto the grass, but passed Williams to lead his home race on the opening lap. Behind, Perez and Grosjean came together, allowing Raikkonen to take 3rd. Maldonado stuck with Alonso quite well, while protecting his tyres. With the gap at 1.1 seconds at the end of lap 10, Alonso pitted, rejoining 3rd behind Raikkonen and Maldonado, who led. They both stopped on the next lap and Alonso regained the lead. Maldonado closed the gap at the front from 2.3 seconds to 1.5 seconds on lap 25, when he made his 2nd pit stop of the day. He rejoined 8 seconds behind Raikkonen in 3rd position. Alonso was held up by lap car Charles Pic on his in-lap, and when he pit on lap 20, he had been undercut by Maldonado. Raikkonen pitted a lap later and rejoined in 3rd. Maldonado led Alonso by 7 seconds as Alonso was protecting his tyres. Alonso then started to gain on Maldonado by half a second per lap, so Maldonado pitted for a 3rd and final time on lap 41. He rejoined 3rd behind Alonso and Raikkonen. Alonso pitted 4 laps later, and Raikkonen inherited the lead. Maldonado had moved up to 2nd, and on lap 47, he took the lead once again, passing Raikkonen at turn 1. Alonso followed suit a lap later and moved into 2nd. On lap 49, Alonso closed the gap at the front to under a second due to wear on Maldonado's tyres. The gap fluctuated between 0.6 and 1.3 seconds over the next 6 laps, and Raikkonen caught up to the top 2. Alonso's tyres suddenly lost grip, and Maldonado was able to stretch his lead to 3 seconds. Maldonado led the remainder of the race and won for the only time in Formula 1. It was only his 2nd point-scoring finish of the season so far, and he ended the championship in 13th place at the end of the season. It really was a miracle win for Maldonado and Williams. 2020 Italian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes were the dominant driver and car pairing in 2020, so it was no surprise when he took pole position for the Italian Grand Prix. Bottas was starting second and Sainz started third. Hamilton retained the lead at the start and Sainz took second, with Bottas dropping down to 6th by the end of the lap. Hamilton led comfortably until lap 19 when Kevin Magnussen's Haas had an engine failure and stopped near the pit lane entry. Soon after, Pierre Gasly made his pit stop before the pit lane was closed and the safety car was deployed. Lewis Hamilton then pitted, but because the pit lane was closed, he was given a 10-second stop and go penalty. When the pit lane reopened, most of the rest of the field pitted, allowing Gasly to move to third, behind Stroll, who was yet to pit, and Hamilton, who had the penalty. The safety car entered the pits at the end of lap 23 and Hamilton led ahead of Stroll and Gasly. At the restart, Charles Leclerc crashed at Parabolica. The red flag was waved to allow the barriers to be repaired. The race resumed on lap 28 and Gasly passed Stroll for second position. On the next lap, Gasly inherited the lead as Lewis Hamilton served his stop-and-go penalty. Raikkonen was now second and Sainz in third. However, Sainz soon passed Raikkonen to take second and started to pressure Pierre Gasly at the lead of the race. Gasly was unfazed by this pressure and led the rest of the race to win, with Sainz finishing second and Stroll in third. This was the first time since the 2012 Hungarian Grand Prix that there was no Ferrari, Mercedes or Red Bull on the podium. This was Pierre Gasly's first ever win and only the second win for the team after Vettel's win for Toro Rosso in 2008 at the same track as previously mentioned in this video. 1961 French Grand Prix. The 1961 French Grand Prix was the fourth round of the season and Ferrari brought an extra car and entered Giancarlo Baghetti as a private entrant. The temperatures were high throughout the event and caused the track surface to break up and melt. Due to this, qualifying was concluded on Friday in order to give the track surface time to recover before the race. Phil Hill took pole by 1.5 seconds from Ferrari teammates on Trips in second and Ginter in third. The other Ferrari of Giancarlo Baghetti qualified 12th in his first F1 start. In the race, Hill led the start and Ginter and Von Trips swapped positions, while the fourth Ferrari of Giancarlo Baghetti was carving his way through the field, including a great move past Bruce McLaren involving minor contact. He was now into the top 10. Ginter spun a few laps later on lap 4, and in avoiding him, Surtees steered into a grass verge, breaking his suspension and forcing him to retire. Phil Hill waved his teammate Von Trips past due to team orders, so the German now led the way at the front of the field. Sterling Moss, who was running fourth, had then developed a spongy brake pedal and was passed by Baghetti, Clark and Ireland. On lap 20, Von Trips' engine failed, promoting Baghetti into a podium position, and on lap 38, Hill, who was leading comfortably, spun on some damaged tarmac and was hit by Sterling Moss. This stalled Hill's engine, forcing him to retire. Ginter then inherited first, with Baghetti in second. 4 laps later, Ginter retired with an oil leak, gifting Baghetti the lead with Gurney and Bonnier behind, who both passed him soon after. On the penultimate lap, Bonnier's engine failed, leaving Baghetti and Gurney to battle it out for the win. Baghetti led at the start of the last lap. Gurney passed him partway through the lap, and coming out of the final corner, Gurney was leading. Baghetti was in his slipstream and pulled out 300 yards before the finish line. He took the checkered flag 1/10 before Gurney to win his first ever F1 race. He became the third ever F1 driver to win on their F1 debut and the only driver to win in their first ever major Grand Prix. 2020 Sakhir Grand Prix. The 2020 Sakhir Grand Prix was the penultimate round of the season and the only F1 race held on the outer circuit configuration of the Bahrain International Circuit. This was because the previous weekend's race was also held in Bahrain on the normal Grand Prix circuit. Lewis Hamilton won that race but tested positive for COVID-19 the following day. He was replaced at Mercedes for this race by Williams' George Russell, who was replaced at Williams by Jack Aitken. Valtteri Bottas took pole position for the Sakhir Grand Prix, with George Russell qualifying in second. Russell passed Bottas at the start, and at turn 4 of the opening lap, Whilst battling for third, Leclerc hit Perez, spinning the Mexican and damaging the left front suspension on his Ferrari.
Goes into the first turn, and George Russell takes the lead of the Sakhir Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas is second and gets all out of shape coming out of turn 2. That's going to give Perez and Verstappen all the impetus they need. As it's 3 cars going wheel to wheel, there's a spin right at the back. Could be Kimi Räikkönen in the Alfa Romeo. Lock up there as Perez is caught by Charles Leclerc, and there's 3 cars gone off at turn 4.
In avoiding this incident, Verstappen hit the barrier and was also out of the race. The safety car was deployed, and Perez, in his racing point, was able to rejoin at the back of the field. The safety car came in on lap 7, and Russell steadily built a gap to Bottas behind. By lap 20, Perez had made his way back into the top 10. Nicholas Latifi caused a virtual safety car on lap 54, and some drivers behind the top 2 pitted, promoting Perez to 3rd, Ocon to 4th, and Stroll to 5th as they all stayed out. 7 laps later, the other Williams of Jack Aitken crashed at the final corner, causing a safety car. Mercedes elected to pit both of their drivers, however confusion led to Russell being sent out on Bottas' front tyres. After 30 seconds stationary, Bottas was sent back out onto the track on the same tyres that he came into the pits on.
Was slow for George Russell. And for Valtteri Bottas, even more confusion for a crew that are normally very,
they're not happy
adept.
with the left front. They're not happy with it, with his left front.
Well, they double stack. They've reacted really, really quickly, Mercedes, and this is costing Bottas. Oh, his brakes are on fire now as well. They had the wrong compound of tyre on, and that's why they couldn't send him out again. But now those brakes are overheating. Bottas needs to get out and get some air through those brakes to cool them down. He has lost track position to Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll. He's gone from 2nd to 5th. Because he wouldn't have
George,
another
we're
set.
going to need to box. We have a mixed tyre set on the car.
Oh no!
Russell had to pit again on the next lap to receive the correct tyres. This left Bottas in 4th and Russell 5th behind Perez, Ocon and Stroll. On lap 69 of 87, the safety car came in, and with Russell being the only car in the top 5 on fresh tyres, he was quick. It took him 4 laps to get into 2nd place, chasing Perez down for his first win. On lap 78, Russell was called into the pits again by Mercedes because he had a puncture.
He has no grip now.
Looks like a rear left puncture.
This gave Perez an easy run to the finish, where he picked up his first ever victory in Formula 1. It had seemed so unlikely that Perez would win on lap 1 given he was facing the opposite direction and was at the back of the field. 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen came into the weekend at the top of the championship, with Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, and Lewis Hamilton would take pole with teammate Bottas qualifying 2nd and Verstappen 3rd. Perez, Gasly, Norris, Leclerc and Ocon made up the rest of the top 8. It started raining before the first lap, so all cars started on intermediate tyres for the race. Lewis Hamilton made a good start and was clear of the field at turn 1. His Mercedes teammate Bottas made a poor start and locked up at turn 1. This lockup took himself out of the race, along with Perez and Norris, who hit Verstappen, causing him to pick up damage. Stroll also braked too late at turn 1 and took himself and Charles Leclerc out of the Grand Prix. The red flag was brought out to deal with all the debris, and the rain had stopped by the time the race restarted. On the formation lap for the 2nd start, the track was very dry. Lewis Hamilton lined up on the grid on intermediate tyres, however the rest of the field pitted on the formation lap to fit dry tyres, leading to one of the most bizarre sights in Formula 1 history, Lewis Hamilton starting by himself. Hamilton pitted at the end of that lap and came out at the back of the grid. This promoted the Alpine of Ocon into 1st position from 8th on the grid, and Vettel was close behind in 2nd position. Hamilton made his next stop early and undercut some of the cars in front of him, including the damaged Verstappen. Vettel was still pressuring Ocon and tried to undercut him on lap 31. Ocon pitted on the next lap and came out ahead of Vettel still. By lap 48, Hamilton had made his way up to 4th position. He then pitted and came out 5th behind Alonso. Alonso held up the Mercedes for 12 laps until the Spaniard made a mistake, locking up at turn 1 and allowing Hamilton to pass him. On lap 67, Hamilton passed Sainz for third, but couldn't pass Vettel or Ocon, giving the Alpine his first ever victory in Formula 1, taking the checkered flag by less than 2 seconds ahead of Vettel and Hamilton in third. It was an unexpected victory for the Alpine team, who haven't won since.
That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if I missed any and there might be a part 2 coming up.